Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's everybody doing this Monday morning? Good morning. Can you guys hear me and see me? Make sure my mic is working. Good morning, good morning. All good. What's up, Jason? Good morning, Dogfish. Odyssey, good morning. What is up, guys? Good morning. Start getting into the analysis here this morning in just a minute. Give people a minute to join in. Good morning, Sean. Yep, iced coffees are here. I was a couple minutes late for this live stream because I was making this fresh iced latte. Dive into the analysis here in just a minute. How's everybody's weekend? Everybody have a good weekend? Let me know in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. If you did anything cool this weekend. Went to Disney with the fam in Orlando, so that's like the number one thing we have to do here. We have passes, so it's easy to just bring the kids anytime. Good, Aslam, good. Weekend was good, just relaxed. Went to Disney, like I said. Good morning, BW. Tobias, good morning, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, guys. So we're kind of in the same range we've been in for a while. London was hot this weekend, went to see Stevie Wonder. And yeah, it's been hot here too in Florida. Super hot summer. I mean, it said, I think the high was like 92 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius, but it felt the feels like here has been just so much hotter than what the actual temperature is. Super hot. Built a shoes display wall this weekend. Interesting. That's cool. I have never done that. So we gapped down a little bit overnight. Bounced pretty much immediately though. Gap down after the market opened yesterday, and then bouncing so far. Humidity makes everything hotter, yeah. It's super humid here in Florida. Super humid, super hot. All right, I've given it a couple minutes now. We'll start diving into the analysis here. Got people starting to join in. For those of you that are on Instagram tuned in, I'm sharing my screen on YouTube, and I'll stay on the stream a bit longer into the trading session. So I always recommend, if you're just tuning in on Instagram, I recommend joining over on YouTube. The link is in my story, and the link to my YouTube channel is in my bio on Instagram. But again, if you want to see the levels that I'm talking about, see the stuff that I'm talking about for my analysis, then I recommend joining over on YouTube. So we'll start out just on the daily time frame here, looking at ES SP500 futures. This is pretty much the only thing that I trade. I will look at some other things for analysis purposes, but this is pretty much all I trade. Actually, you can pull up VX and see where that's at here. VX is still pretty weak. It's bouncing a bit, reclaimed this kind of trend line level that I've been watching. Nothing too crazy. So pretty much since we had that really strong rally, that that broke above prior all-time highs, what was this, just like a week ago, back at the beginning of July. Since then, we've just kind of been in this consolidation range up here. So this consolidation range, I'm kind of treating this as balance range rules, where I typically look to look at like the bottom of that balance range as an area of demand and the top as an area of supply. The difference in this one is I'm really not looking to short the top of this balance range because it's right at all-time highs. So I'm not going to be looking to short that at all. I would potentially use that as a target for longs, and we'll dive into some more key levels as we get into it here. Specifically the levels that I really was talking a lot about on Friday, which was around 6,300, 6,310. I think I did do a live stream on Friday that I was talking about these levels. So those remain a key area kind of in the middle of this range. Let's pull up a fib here and actually look at this range from here to here. So the 50%, I don't always look at fibs specifically, but when the market is in a range, I do like to kind of look at that sometimes. So 50% of this is right around 62.97, so close to that 6,300. Let me actually look at this here. 50% that way, right around 62.90. Interesting. So that's kind of the range that I'm talking about. You guys can see since we broke out of this, we pulled back. We dipped kind of loosely below the prior all-time highs here. And again, I look at the contract adjusted prices. So that's what I'm looking at here. But 62.58, we broke out above that. Pretty strong breakout on these daily candles, closing near the highs on the breakout above that, but then, pulled back, bounced, broke the all-time highs again last week, pulled back near the low of that range after we gapped down overnight. Let's see, what did we pull back to specifically here? Drop down to the 4-hour in this zone. So we dropped down to 62.59 3/4. So like just under 2 points away from that level. So starting to see the same thing pretty clearly on the 4-hour time frame here. This is that balance range that I'm talking about. And I talked about this last week as well, but how we consolidated right here in this range before we broke out. Come on. We kind of consolidated in this range, which I'm now looking at this prior consolidation and then breakout of the all-time highs as an area of demand. I like to see like a consolidation form and then, an aggressive break out to the upside. That's an area of interest for like demand, and specifically above this prior all-time high level at 62.58. We've kind of held that. We dipped down into here. We dipped under that level, but we never broke under this prior consolidation and then broke out those all-time highs, pulled back into that. We broke below that level, but then we recaptured above it. And really a dip below a level like that and then a recapture back above it is a nice setup for me personally to take that long. So that's where we're at. And then we're kind of in this consolidation range. Now we did gap down, so it's important to watch this. Actually, let me mark this gap level here. Let me pull up my actual trading time frames. So we did have the 62.77 key level as well. I think that was a key level from the order flow last week. We broke below it briefly on this gap down. We've now recaptured back above it. So that's an important thing to watch. If we hold above that 77 key level, that old key level, now that would be interesting. And we also kind of formed some nice demand here on this base This is a 4-hour time frame, guys. So we spent a good bit of time here for 8 going on 12 hours. 12 hours now at the low of this range accumulating, and then we kind of broke out above it to the upside. We just kind of stretched this out here. So really this whole area, like here, I'm kind of watching to see us now hold above. If we get any dips between 77 and this area here, this would be a nice buying area. If I see a lot of absorption, a lot of interesting activity from buyers on the tape, take that area long. But again, if I see good stuff up here, I'm not necessarily going to wait for a pullback all the way into here. It just kind of depends on what develops price action, order flow, intraday. But I like this area to get long and target maybe this gap fill. 62.93. Mark this. On the 4-hour chart, that is a nice, if we get another pullback here off the open, look for an opportunity between the 62.77 and let me try to mark it right around there, probably where this consolidation occurred, and then we rallied strongly off that. Again, 4-hour time frame. We'll see it more clearly as we drop down, but 4-hour time frame, basing candle, and then a nice wick and pretty large upside move back into this gap area. So I would want to see this hold. Just call this just a key level of demand area. So pretty much within this area is where I'm looking for any dips to get bought. That's one of my first setups of the day that I'm looking for. And then again, probably target that 62.93 gap area. That was also pretty close to the 50 percentile of this range. Now, if we do get above that and we get above 6,300 as well, and we hold that on pullbacks, 6,300 being kind of a prior day low, and also a regular trading hours low, right around 95 here. So if we get above this 93, 95, 6,300 area and then pull back into it, I would be interested in kind of a break and retest long setup and target these prior day highs here around 63.11 into 63.13. Call it. Mark this here. So that's another interesting thing to watch there. Potentially use that as a target for longs. Now, as we get to the top of this range here, I'm like I said, I'm not really interested in taking anything short. If we gap fill and reject strongly after, filling this gap plus or minus a few points and sellers reload strongly, I may be interested in just a little short scalp off that and maybe target if we don't come down here and test these buyers that formed overnight, and I do see that set up, then maybe that's something that I can take short for a quick scalp and target these buyers down here for a retest of them. But again, don't love that as much. I just don't like short setups in general as much right now as we get nearer and nearer and pretty much consolidating at all-time highs, right? Until I see a consolidation, a breakdown and retest, and then where we're kind of more bearish looking in the market overall on higher time frames, making lower lows, lower highs, etc., then shorts become more appealing to me. But as we continue to just make all-time highs and consolidate near all-time highs, I don't love short setups so much. It's just a recipe to take. From my experience in my data, I just end up taking a lot of small losses over and over again, and then eventually, yeah, you'll catch one that works for a nice short, but the problem is you're like maybe break even on short setups overall because you've taken a bunch of small losses in those kind of conditions before catching a nice downside move. And then also, that bullish structure, if you're looking for shorts in those type of conditions, you end up missing a lot of nice upside moves because you're looking for shorts. So that kind of, you take a lot of small losses in those kind of conditions, and then on top of that, to add insult to injury, you kind of miss long setups because you were looking for the big reversal You know what I mean? Instead of, you could have caught a million nice little long scalps along the way, but instead you're trying to catch a massive reversal at the top, and you end up getting just chopped up with a bunch of losses. And then even when you do catch a nice, downside play, you're just trying to break even on your short setups overall. So that's why I kind of like to align conditions and the setups that I'm looking for, just to maximize both probability and risk versus reward. Hopefully that makes sense. Looking for possible distribution for today. Seems like have balanced range conditions. I don't know what you mean, profit distribution. Yeah, it looks like balanced range conditions between these highs up here. Just got up here. This is the balance range that I've been talking about. We got all-time highs up here. We got this really nice demand that formed after this consolidation at prior all-time highs and then broke out above it. So that is the low. Just general, I'm not super specific here, guys, but just this balance range between all-time highs where we've double topped and this consolidation and breakout of old all-time highs, which we've now kind of made higher lows off multiple times. Look at this. How many? Look at that. That's interesting. Look at that overnight drop. I'm going to leave that trend line up, actually. So look at that 4-hour higher lows. Get rid of this now. You know what I'm talking about. Look at that. Man, I can't draw this dang oval. It's Monday, guys. Right there. Jeez. Definitely know it's Monday when I'm struggling to draw an oval on a chart. All right. So yeah, look at that. How interesting is that? Right at that trend line that formed on these higher lows, right above prior all-time highs. Interesting. If technical analysis doesn't work, explain that. Right there. All right, let's drop down to the hourly time frame here. Pretty simple game plan today, guys. To me, like, balance range structure is actually pretty clear and simple. The only time it gets complicated, or not even gets complicated, but gets dangerous, is when people start trying to do too much and get impatient and get chopped up in the middle. But if you're just patient and you just wait for the fake outs, especially in this situation towards the low end of it, then it's pretty clear and simple structure to trade around. So looking at the hourly time frame, we had this kind of nice pump here, and then we've kind of just been grinding. I would love to see a quick drop off the open to kind of take out this liquidity and into this area here, form another higher low above this trend line, above this prior all-time high level. That would be nice. That would be a nice setup to me. That's kind of the area that I'm talking about. Gap down, based, rallied out of it, pull back in and hold. Nice little setup there for the upside gap fill target. Makes sense? Pretty simple stuff. The main thing is just going to be staying patient, not getting chopped up in between, and kind of like Friday. Like Friday, there was a really nice setup at the lows. I missed the entry, just didn't chase it. Took one setup, ended up getting stopped break even before my target went and hit. Sometimes that happens. But I think as long as we're patient today, it's pretty clear price action. But if this doesn't pull back and just continues to squeeze all the way into the gap level now without ever pulling back, then that makes it a little tricky. We're only a couple points away too, so very good chance we could just squeeze right up into here and fill that gap level. If we go and fill this gap level and then reject all the way back down into here, then it's not going to look at like as great of a setup to me, guys. I'll still watch it and then maybe target a retest of the gap level or a break into 6,300 and above. But depending on what forms with price action here on this gap fill, if we fill this gap and drop back into here, then it's probably not going to look like as good of a setup. But we'll see what forms up. We'll see how it develops. I'll still watch it. But a lot of buying coming in here in just the last few minutes after 9:17. Here, I'll flip this camera around for you guys on Instagram, try to show you what I'm talking about. So again, for those of you tuned in on Instagram Live, I recommend hopping over on YouTube. I'm sharing my screens on here, and it's easier to follow along. But that's it for the game plan, guys. Pretty simple stuff today. We'll drop down to the 15-minute just because nothing too crazy. Yeah, we had this nice large pump out of here, pulled back, held this kind of prior consolidation area where I drew the top of that. I'm going to get rid of this now. I just don't like too much noise on my screens. I already know that area. But yeah, you can see the top of this consolidation area, like right here. We broke out above that, pulled back, held above it, and then just continuing to make higher lows here so far in the pre-market, and another nice little rally here right after 9:15. So looks like we're going all the way for the gap fill right off the bell, which makes this a little trickier, and just got to stay patient and sit back and wait and see what develops. Anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? I will switch the screens over to Bookmap, check out the order flow together. What do you guys think? What are you guys watching? Let me know in the chat. If you guys see anything differently, if you're watching something else in queue, you can pull up in queue really quick, but market's about to open in 3 minutes. So, all right, guys. So on Instagram, I'm going to end the stream there. And if you would like to stay along for the live stream, I recommend joining over on YouTube. The link is in my story. Like I said, I'll stay on the YouTube live stream for the morning trading session. Peace out on Instagram. Same analysis on NQ, but gap filled. So the gap's already filled, Ishan said on NQ. All right, switch the screens over now. Low volume around the 86s. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the pre-market, like right before the open. So yeah, it did kind of squirt up there with the lower volume. Gap filled. Yep, there it is. In the minute before the open. So that makes it a little trickier for this game plan, in my opinion, so far this morning. But nice bit of momentum here. So that other setup that I mentioned, if we fill that gap and we do not show any signs of slowing down, especially into 6,300, and I see a lot of buying above that, if we pull back and hold this gap level in 6,300 area, then I would maybe be interested in going ahead and taking that long and targeting prior day highs around 63.11 to 13. So we'll see how this develops, but it's a little tricky right here off the get-go. Little tricky. But just going to stay patient. We're like right at this gap fill, guys. We are like dead center of this balance range that we've been in over the last couple weeks. So going back to the beginning of July, since we broke out the all-time highs, we pulled back and we're right in the middle of that range now. Down at the lows, it was a better setup. Like I mentioned, if we had done the opposite and got a pullback into the 6270s, like that area around 65 to 77 area, would have been nice. But we kind of squeezed straight up this morning here in the pre-market ever since around 3 a.m. this morning and filled that gap right at the bell. So we'll see how this sets up. I didn't mention, but there's not too much news today as far as planned economic calendar news. We do have a little bit of a nice week set up. We have CPI coming tomorrow, PPI on Wednesday. Let's see, jobless claims on Thursday, and then Michigan inflation expectations on Friday. So we have a pretty nice full week of news events this week, except today. And I have seen mentioned several times that Trump is going to be making an announcement in regards to like the Russia-Ukraine conflict today. So maybe watch out for that. I think it's unlikely that that news would be a positive for the market. So I guess that's something to watch out for that could, depending on what he says, drop the market. I think so far any kind of peace talks with Ukraine and Russia have been failed. So I don't really see anything potentially positive coming out of what he may or may not say today about that. And it's probably just going to be more of the same that we've already heard, that the US is going to be expediting more weapons shipments to Ukraine and stuff, but it just kind of adds fuel. So if there's any more risk of escalated US involvement in kind of global conflict, then that could spark some downside volatility. Just mentioning it to be aware of, because I did see that a couple times mentioned that there is going to be some talk today about that. Let me see what time it is. Drop it in the chat if anybody is aware of what time Trump is speaking today about that, or if he is not speaking today about that. I don't know. Trump to meet NATO chief ahead of expected major statement on Ukraine. Just seeing a major statement from Trump expected later today, which could be about the war in Ukraine. So I don't know what time or when, but later today sometime. If anybody knows, drop it in the chat. Yeah, I am looking if it retraces back down into the 80s. No, I'd like to see probably a little bit more of a drop than 86. We'll see how it develops here. It's just not so much of a key level for me right now, and I don't see enough. It could work. It could totally bounce from there. But I'm not loving that location enough, and I'm not seeing enough key level even from the order flow on that, just because that occurred right there in the pre-market. Yeah, it could work. It could totally work. This kind of lower volume from 84 to 86 area, and it could bounce from there, but it's just not key enough for me to. We'll see. If I see something really good, then maybe on the order flow. But I try to come up with really key areas and look at the order flow and execute around those. And if I do see very key price action, very key order flow things occurring, I will, be nimble and adjust to that and maybe mark that as a new level and develop that intraday. But that price action right in the pre-market there, yeah, it could work and it could bounce from there. But would I take over 100 trades of taking a trade like that? Would it be a good outcome? I don't know. I don't, because that's not kind of structure that I look to trade off of all the time. So if you're talking about this over here, Life Buddy asked, how did I add volume profile delta? Which are you talking about this column over here? This is the Bookmap DOM Pro. It's an add-on with the Global Plus subscription. This whole thing on my right-hand side over here. And so this volume profile delta by price is a part of the DOM Pro. Just looking at the 2-minute chart here, looks a little choppy here since the 9:30 open after that gap fill. Like I said, it's pretty clear structure when balance ranges form like this. The hardest part is to probably not overanalyze order flow and stuff when you're in the middle of the range, and just stay patient, because it's easy to get chopped up and overanalyze things on like the order flow and stuff, and just kind of forget where you're at and forget you're kind of in the middle of the range. And it's when you're right in the middle of the range, it's just not as high quality. So I like the structure that's setting up here with the higher lows and kind of the momentum that's built in the pre-market. However, one, we already hit the gap fill and we're kind of going sideways here. Two, at this point, we are right in the middle of the range. So if we kind of get above that gap fill level into 6,300 with strength and we kind of hold pullbacks and stuff, then that's a better like momentum break and retest above that now. Then that's something that I may be interested in taking long. And then, like I said, targeting that 63.11 and a half into even 63.29. If it's looking like that kind of a day where there's a lot of momentum, buying strength, and we're just going higher. So we could go 63.11 to 63.29 if that occurs. But just want to be cautious here because we are in the middle of the range. It's kind of 50-50 coin flip. And I like when things line up for me with, probability that makes sense, aka aligning myself with the market context, either trading at the edges of a balance range or finding key areas of support and resistance within a trending move. So I like to align my setups with the market conditions and the market trends. The markets generally go through periods of expansion and consolidation, expansion, consolidation. So just got to identify kind of what that current phase is that's occurring. Right now we already kind of expanded a large range so far this year on that V-shaped bounce. And now we're kind of going into one of those consolidations. Still bullish because we're right near and /at all-time highs, but not trying to necessarily just jump in longs right in the middle of this range or short it either. I was watching this area up here. If we come up to this gap fill and sellers are strong here or absorbing buyers here to possibly take it short and target that 77 level, 62.77 area. So that's still in play, but like I said, I don't love that setup unless I see really good confirmations, and so far I don't. But there is now the picture is starting to develop on this gap fill. We saw this large absorption up here. We've kind of dropped. We bounced and made a lower high here at 93 again with what looks like more absorption. And now we're dropping down here with more selling. So we'll see if we get another pop up into here with weak buying, and we'll see how that develops. Or it might just go now, which is okay. So sellers are coming in now. So let's see if we get a little pop back up into here. Nice little drop now. Nice little drop off that gap fill area. So we'll see if this drop brings us back into those kind of key areas that I talked about, at 77, 77 really down to like 65 area, and see if buyers defend that. But again, like I said in the pre-market, I don't super love that setup as much now that we've already filled the gap. I would have liked that setup better when the gap fill was still a valid target, and now that the gap fill has occurred and dropping back, not as great. It still could work, and possibly just take it as a little scalp and not target all the way up to a gap fill, just target maybe a retest of this opening range. But see how this sets up. Good bit of selling coming in though. We are retesting though this area that consolidated a lot in the pre-market, and held that higher low off 77. So I'm not looking to jump in it long here necessarily, but if something sets up good, then we can think about it. If this sharp aggressive drop fails and we make another higher low here, then we could be going to test that 6,300 again and potentially break out 6,300. This is quite a lot of selling from sellers off that gap fill. So if they fail to kind of break the structure around 77 to 65, then we could go retest it. Holding VWAP. Yeah, my VWAP is up here. I don't know, this is just the bookmap, like default VWAP settings. It's up here around 6288. It's really the only VWAP that I look at, is just this one. That's whatever the default settings are for it on bookmap. I don't really use a lot of indicators like VWAP or anything like that, moving averages. So this is an interesting order here, this 299 around 83, and that was right in that kind of 84 to 86 area that we talked about, which was that lower volume quick bounce that occurred in the pre-market. Default TOS VWAP is always a little off. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the time of like where it's set to be anchored from. Marcus took along from 83.75. Yeah, that looks valid to me. That does. I just don't see anything real significant, but it does look good how we had this large absorption order, and then we kind of broke back above it and held a higher low off these lows here with smaller selling. That does look good. I think for me, I just didn't see any like real significant buying here. So I guess that's just kind of indicative of just kind of middle of the range. This looks pretty thin so far, this bounce, which could mean, sellers sellers just got squashed on this failed sell-off attempt from that gap fill level. So we'll see if we get back up there now. If we break above it, we are back above that 93s now. This is kind of like Friday, how we bounced off that low and then had a quick squeeze up and never came back to get in. Yeah, we'll see if we get another pullback now, or if it just blasts up into 6,300. And if we get a little pullback, I'll be looking to see if I find any good things to take it long and target those 6,300s now into that 6,311, and then above that, potentially even 6,329s would be like final target probably for me if I'm able to get in down here somewhere. Large up and down on the 15-minute so far off the open here. Just a sideways block between like those 93, 94s, 95s area and 6280s. So I'm still liking this now, that same setup that I mentioned earlier. If we see nice strong buying above that gap fill around 6,300s, I may try to find a way to get in, speculating that we go and break out those 6,300s into 6,311, 6,329s. It's a lot of positive delta stacked right here at these highs above 93, 94, 95. So I'm not going to chase it long right here yet. But yeah, like literally what I just said, somebody else just said, yeah, lots of buying here right at the highs off the open. And again, now as we come back and as we came back up here, so there's a lot of buying up here at the highs, rejected, but failed to reject and held a higher low again above the 62.77 key level that I mentioned. And now we're back above these and still seeing a lot of buying. So let's see if we get some kind of a pullback to get a part of this. For me, seems like a lot of people already got in it, which is awesome. Yeah, a lot of positive delta on this. Looking at my footprint chart here, 222 lots right at the high at 97s, 200 lots, 96, 200, 200, just a lot of like 200 plus positive lot delta stacking right at the highs here. So we'll see if this is, well, I don't know if you guys hear that on the stream. It sounds like it just started pouring rain here. Had a massive thunderstorm roll through here overnight. So if my stream just goes silent, then I may have lost power in this storm. SPX gap fill on 62.58-ish remains unfilled. That's a good call out there, BW. Let me check that out. I didn't look at SPX and SPY today. So we're dropping back now again after stacking all that positive delta on the break of the highs. Now dropping back again. We'll see if this gets bought for that kind of break and retest setup above those 93s. I like it. I just don't see anything substantial yet. there is kind of a low volume area here between 89 and 93 where we broke above that that 93 gap level on ES. Yeah, gap is still there on SPX. That was a good thing to note there, BW. Yeah, we got a pretty nice bit of rain surging out there right now. Did drop back off this absorption of this positive delta at the highs, but we bounced right at 92, just above that 93. I don't see anything super key for me to jump in on it though. In fact, like kind of weaker buying here on this little pop. So large absorption again on the break of these highs. Pulled back. We kind of bounced off those 92s, 93s. I didn't see anything significant, and then just kind of weaker buying on this pop. So it may be that we would just want to kind of continue consolidating here in this middle of the range area. That was quite a bit of buying. Just looking at the 2-minute chart, we dipped those lows there under 82.80 area. That was quite a bit of buying that surged on the 2-minute chart, broke those highs, and then rejecting again so far. We'll see. Finding the current action and location to be a little difficult to get involved on my end for setups that I like. This is an interesting area right here. Look at all this on the volume profile delta, negative delta here around 91. "15-minute chart is just like a sideways block, and we're right in the middle. So still sitting on my hands. I have no problem staying cash today and waiting for setups to develop this week. Like I said, we got a lot of news coming up this week. Hopeful for some nicer volatility this week potentially. I'm staying patient here. Just it's Monday morning. We're dead center of this balance range, so chilling, watching what develops. If I see a good setup, take it. But if not, I have no problem just being patient. Mike Drop says, oh, welcome in, Mike Drop. I didn't see you when we first joined this morning. Volatility will come in this week. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't like to say definitely or this will happen or this won't happen. Just we'll see. I am skeptically optimistic that we may have some decent volatility this week, better than the last couple of weeks, just because the economic calendar is a little stacked this week as far as things. So sometimes it's nice just to zoom out, guys, even just zooming out even to just like the 15-minute. And if you look at the 15-minute candle chart here, between this gap level and the pre-market consolidation, it's just kind of a sideways block on the 15-minute. So be aware of that. Some negative delta popped up here around 89, 250 lot negative delta. See if price drops now under that, or if it holds that and recaptures with some aggressive buying or not. There's kind of a low volume area between, this 85 and 87 area still. So we'll see if we come back in here and make another higher low. It's a good potential long setup, but I guess the only thing that makes it more questionable for me now is just how we've already filled that gap level and we've hit that high a day a second time. But there was so much buying up there at the highs, it just makes me feel like there's a good chance we're going to go back up there again with how much buying there was right at the highs. Well, there's some buying. See if this recaptures back above here now. There's a nice bit of buying here. There was all that negative delta stacked up around 89. Let's see if that recaptures now right around 89. Yeah, I took a stab at this at 89, but I'm going to be pretty tight here. I might take it right back off if we don't squeeze right from here. I was going to put a stop loss under 87 and target a squeeze back above that high of day just because of how much buying was up there. But if I don't see buying squeeze this right now, then I may take it off for just like a point loss if it doesn't go. Kind of want to see this kind of squeeze right now with just the buying that's coming in here. After we're popping above that negative delta, that stacked at 89, I kind of want to see those sellers at those 89s where I just bought in long to get squeezed and pop higher right now. And then we'll see if we can go test those highs again with all that buying that was up there into 6,300. But definitely want it to go like now. Definitely don't want to see these buyers here get trapped. I want to see this squeeze above these 89s and trap those sellers that sold here into those 89s and go, break these 95s into 6,300. Yeah, I'm going to probably go break even here because it's kind of like a now or right now or not setup for me. But just finger on the trigger with this. Like I said, I don't want to see all this buying come in and fail here. I want to see trap of these sellers into this area where we had that negative delta stack up at 89 right at my entry. We had that stack of negative delta between 88.25 and 89.25. And so as soon as we recaptured that, I took it long at the 89s. Initially stop under the 87s, now going to probably go break even just because this type of setup, I want to see this higher low hold higher low hold with these trap sellers and go squeeze out in a pretty immediate way back to these highs where all this higher volume was. And if we don't and we make a lower high here and trap buyers again, then we could drop quickly below my entry. So fine balance of being patient and not being a dumb bag holder. Yeah, I'm actively looking at the footprint. Come on. Just lost the steam. Yeah, I'm not going to bag hold this if buyers lose steam here now. I want to see that squeeze above those trap sellers at the 89s in an immediate way. I'm still in. That came like a tick away from me flattening there. But just going to try to stay patient here. But the amount of buying there at the highs, to me, looks like a good chance that we go retest that. Yeah, we're still pretty flat on the session after 9:30, 40 minutes now. Some interesting order here triggered this absorption indicator on Bookmap. Iran is refusing to halt uranium enrichment. News just surfaced. Yeah, I'm for sure not going to hold this red. I got a hard order set that might take me out, but I liked that buying momentum off that 89s on that recapture, trapping those sellers at the 89s, 88s, but it's fizzled and gone sideways now. And for that setup, I wanted to see kind of a pretty immediate rally back into the highs with some good buying. Yeah, it just stopped me out for break even right there. At 89.25. And see there, like I said, now we just dropped quickly back towards the 87s. So there just was no I could just feel the way this was setting up. Like if we came back to my entry at the 89s at that point, there was going to be most likely a quick drop back into those 87s. So there was no reason for me to take a full stop loss on that trade setup. Just with how this was setting up here, I like to see those trapped sellers at 89s. And we bounced right off that entry here. So here's my entry here around 89s. We got a nice squirt up over that. I was up, 3 or so points. But after that dwindled and the buying just fizzled just a couple points over my entry, there was no reason to bag hold that, in my opinion. That's why we already shifted that structure above and squeezed above those 89s. So I'm out for break even. And thankfully I did, because if I tried to be too stubborn on that and ignore what price action was telling me and order flow was telling me, then I would have just taken a 2-point stop loss on that for no reason. And it may bounce from here, which would be annoying, but it would have stopped me out for 2-point loss and then bounced. So I'd rather just eat the break even on that. Not be too stubborn with that idea. Mike asks, was I interested in long in the 80s? I was watching this area around 62.77, really all the way into 62.65. And on that sharp drop down to the 80s, I was not looking there at that point. I was waiting for a little bit more of a drop under the set to the 77s to 65s area zone to get long. So I did not catch it. But since we held on that quick drop to 80s, and then I saw all that large buying at the highs, that was what kind of set up this idea of, okay, we saw this large buying that bounced those 80s. There was all this buying stacked up here at the highs, which made me really feel like we were going to go back to these highs again in the near future, which it looks like now maybe we are, and I may have just mistimed it. But on this pullback here, I saw this start to hold. I took these long at 89 with a stop under 87. After this buying broke out above here and the buying dwindled, I moved my stop loss to break even there. But the the bounce off those 80s to hold another higher low intraday was kind of my reasoning for taking that setup long. But it may have just been mistimed, and we swept out another stop hunt here and then just immediately bounced back up. And this is pretty indicative, guys, of like middle of the balance range price action. And this is why it's so tricky. And I'm so defensive on this, because look at that. That was the setup that I wanted. And I got a good entry on it with a 2-point risk. And then we came and swept it out by just a couple points. And now we're bouncing back up towards the target. So it's just very tricky. And you got to be very defensive and very sharp if you're playing near the middle of this range. And the better setup would have been to get a nicer drop down into those 77s to 65s area, in my opinion. But I'm not going to chase this now up here at the 93, 94s. I didn't see anything personally to get in this. We had this quick, sharp drop. So I got out for break even, like here around 89.25. It swept down and then bounced. But large selling on the sweep down and then just like instantly shooting up on that, I didn't really see anything to re-enter that right there. I mean, maybe I could have just immediately triggered the entry on the recapture of 89 again, 87, 89. But this smaller buying to me was not convincing enough to trigger me to re-enter this 87s and 89s on the recapture. And it worked this time. It's just pretty difficult. So, and here, look, what did I say? All that buying up here, if I said very likely we're going to go retest it, we are now back up into those 6300s. So that was the idea. You know, I got a great entry on it for the idea here, and we got one more stop hunt, basically. That is like the definition of a stop hunt. Sweep out all these first buyers here and then recapture, and I didn't get the re-entry on it. So that was a pretty nasty little stop hunt there that got me out. Thankfully, I was prudent with managing the risk and took the break even instead of taking a 2-point loss, because that would have been really insulting to take the 2-point loss on that and then see it go bounce up to these high days. Insulting to myself for not being smarter. But managed it the best that I could on that attempt. I can't chase it now. But like I said, if I see strength above these 93s, above 6300s, then maybe I'll look for a pullback to take it long, targeting those 6311s and 6329s if we get that kind of uptrending day strength. But so far, guys, first hour almost is in the books here. It's 10:19, and we're in a pretty tight range. We gap filled and held the pre-market lows, and we're just kind of playing chicken in there. So between 80 and 96, 16-ish point range here in the first hour. Yeah, looking at the 2-minute, my first entry looked great, and then we have just a giant wick where I got out break even, and it stopped Hunt that whole swing low that formed at 85, and then rallied from there. So tricky, very tricky. Show you guys on the candle chart what that looks like. So thankfully, like really watching this like a hawk with the order flow allowed me to at least manage my risk really well and know like when was a good time to like take the break even instead of taking a full loss. Sometimes that's the game, is just being very defensive. Let's look at this candle chart over here, because if you weren't watching the order flow like a hawk there to know like how to manage risk, there wasn't a whole lot of warning that would have, in my opinion, gotten you to take the break even instead of taking a full stop loss. So look at this 2-minute chart here. Like this was my entry actually under this wick here. Bam, there it goes, the rally it into the all-time highs into 6,300. Nasty freaking wick, guys. Sorry, it's just how it happens sometimes. But yeah, so my entry down here at the 89.25s, that looks good after my entry. And then it kind of died, goes sideways, and then just nasty wick out here. That. So that's where I took the break even. Right around there. Did not re-enter because, like I said, looking at it, I just didn't see a ton to get me in. And then after that nasty stop hunt, now we're going and breaking it. So there's my target into the 6,300s. Would have been a 10-point target on 2 points of risk. Unfortunately, got me out break even on this pretty nasty wick here. Nasty. It's all good. It's all good. Huge negative delta at the NQ highs. Matt, how you record your trades, because there is a lot in a thesis. Not sure what you mean, Tobias. There's a good bit of buying here now, so let's see if we get any kind of pullback, speculating that we break out these 6,300s. So kind of a break and retest of these 6,300s. If we get any kind of pullback in here, let's watch that. So from where this strong buying was around 96, 97s to where this buying was around 92s. If we get a pullback in there that holds, this could be a consolidation here at the highs for a kind of breakout of the 6,300s into those 6,310s. Yeah, Blair, same thing I just talked about, the kind of this range right here between 97 and 92. See if we get a drop in there that holds, and I am still interested to potentially get it for a breakout of the 6,300s into 63.11. And if there's a strong break above 63.11, then target 63.26 to 29 area, which is where that selling initiated overnight on Friday night. Yeah, around 8 p.m. on Friday. $291 lot positive delta right at the highs, and then a thinner volume sharp drop here. It's not kind of the ideal volume pattern I was looking for to get this set up. Strong slice down there. So I have not entered that long setup yet. This is a little tricky, even for me, guys, with these pretty nasty little sweeps back. So a bit more selling coming in now than I think what we've seen on these previous pullbacks. Just zooming out and looking, that is some larger, heavier selling than what we've seen on any of these prior pullbacks. See that? Just look at the size of the red bubbles on this pullback versus the others. So I'm going to sit back and chill right now. Like it could work and it could bounce straight back up again from here, but I'm going to be kind of cautious now. Like not ideal what I would like to see for buying a dip setup for a high a day breakout when we've poked the high 1, 2, 3 times now and rejected. And this time we're rejecting with even larger selling, I would say. We could trap these sellers and go squeeze the highs again, but it just doesn't look super ideal. Definitely, I mean, just very clearly zooming out here on Bookmap, look at the size of the selling. And this is something you really can't see on a candle chart, but just look at the size of the selling on this pullback versus these ones so far. So not necessarily a sign to short it or anything. It's just, I mean, it could be depending on your setups, but for me, for the setup that I was looking for this morning, but it's just a red flag that, so like I said, I was watching this zone to buy this, to possibly buy this dip for a breakout of 6,300 into those 6,310s. But when I saw the size of this selling as we dropped into here, that's why I kept my finger off the trigger and just waited. So sometimes there's nothing wrong with just protecting capital, guys. If there's not a clear setup that you like to trade at an area of interest that you that you've identified and everything, like there's nothing wrong with just staying patient and protecting capital for better opportunities. Don't have to catch and be a part of every move. How do I keep a detailed record of your trades? I mean, there's a lot to log. It's not just a pattern on the chart. It's okay, Tobias. I understand what you're saying now. So I have setups documented in the app that I use, TradeZella, for journaling and documenting my trades. And so there are different types of setups that I look for and different types of conditions. And I generally will go back and do like a little write-up of the things that I saw, because I have, it may seem random and chaotic just trying to watch it from you guys' perspective, but from my perspective, like I do have a lot of different specific volume patterns and things that I look for, confirmate, like both market technical analysis and structure of where and when. And then the when is like specific volume patterns and things that I see on footprint charts, on Bookmap, etc. And so when I journal the trade, I will typically write up basically a lot of what I explained to you guys, and I have a setup for that. And then I will typically take like screenshots from like Bookmap and the footprint of what I saw and enter that in. Yeah, look at this heavy selling coming in here, guys. So be cautious here. A lot of negative delta, heavy selling just came in around 90 to 88, which is where I took my first long entry attempt. It's tricky price action in here though, guys. I'm probably not wanting to be involved in here until we get out of this zone, out of this range. Gonna remove this now. Yeah, still, I like this 15-minute view on Bookmap here between the spacing like this, and you can see the size of the selling off each of these high of day, like starting at 9:30 after the open, selling, pulled back. We took out the highs, selling, pulled back, took out the highs again. And this is actually a good representation of what I was saying is, like, I find this current price action is difficult to short in these market conditions, because like even if you were targeting that gap area, which we filled right on the, or you were looking for an entry to short off that gap area, we had this absorption at these highs. Unless you just took it for a quick scalp and just sold on the momentum drop down, we had this absorption, rejected, we came and took out those highs again, absorption, rejected, came and took out those highs again. So like, you know, you've already, if you're trying to catch a top reversal in these conditions, you've already taken multiple stop losses on that. And again, just looking at the 15-minute, we're still just in a pretty tight range here. First full hour in, 10:35 now. So first full hour in, and we're kind of up and down in this range. About 6,300 to 80, so 20 point range. But aside from that quick little break of the highs there, really it's been more like a 15-point range for the majority of the day. Other than that, those quick little pokes at the high that quickly dropped back down, it's like majority of the day has just been trading in this like 15-point range. And now we're bouncing again. Pretty sharp bounce here. But again, seeing all this heavy selling on this drop to here just doesn't make me really interested in catching a bottom reversal on that now. I have a contractor coming to my house later today, guys. So give me a second. Sorry, I just got to text him back about scheduling. I will say though, like this is a little tricky, and even for me. So don't feel bad if you caught a loss or you caught a break even. Actually, ideally, you're being very prudent with your risk if you do put on any trades in this kind of conditions. And so, having a break even in this kind of conditions is not, it's not a bad thing. Don't feel bad about that at all. And if you were able to catch the dip at the lows, hopefully scaled out at the highs, these kind of conditions are definitely where you want to be, just in and out of quick scalps. For me, I'm just sitting out of this range now for the time being. And, don't get me wrong, I would love to get into something. I want to make money and be involved in the market for sure, but I'm not going to put on random trades and random risk when conditions don't align. Especially like this is the second day in a row, like Friday, I watched the charts for a couple hours, I think I was on the live stream on Friday for like 2.5 hours, had one trade, it was break even. And then today, so far, over an hour in, almost 2 hours in the live stream, it took one trade and it was break even. So that has just been the conditions recently, guys. So it's important to protect capital and not take random trades, not take dumb trades, not take low quality trades. Just be patient for the right opportunities when they come. If you just blast through capital in conditions and setups that don't align with, your A+ trade setups, then it's going to be very hard to make and keep money in the long run. Because even if conditions are good for your setups and you do take good trades, then you're just trying to make back capital that you've blown up on kind of dumb trades. Matt, another quick question. Do you use other instruments as reference to place trades? Yeah, not individual names really, but I do look at like VX and NQ. Not a ton. It's not super critical to my analysis. I'm not like watching it throughout the day like a hawk, but I do look at certain key levels and key things on the other indices like NQ and the Dow, mostly just NQ and VX, I would say. And then I also do like to look at the underlyings and look at like SPX and SPY and stuff. Good question though, forever, Daniel. Petition for everyday live streams this week. I'm trying to work on some new videos and stuff for you guys, so. I'll do everyday live streams again soon. Yes, signed. You guys are making me think. Hopefully, one thing that you guys see from this today is like, it's the last video about your setup was really made. Thanks. That's actually like my first actual YouTube video that I've made, and I filmed that and edited that myself. So that's the first one that I've made, and I'll make more going over some more stuff, trading, more technical trading related and stuff. But that was just kind of a first feeler. It's something that people ask me all the time about, is making a video of like what I use for my trading, all my monitors and my desktop, and what trading apps I use and everything. So I said, like, what the heck, I'll just make an overview video of it, because people ask me all the time, and then now I can just reference that if you guys want to see my whole setup that I use for trading, monitors, desktop, how I have my layout for my trading apps and everything, and everything that I use. So if anybody is on here that didn't watch that, that is posted if you are interested in seeing it. But I appreciate the feedback on that. That is helpful to know that quality was good. I tried. Took me a few hours to figure out how to like edit that and stuff. Even just the stuff as simple as just like doing like the transitions in the video and stuff like that and it was a lot longer, and I had to cut out a lot to try to make it concise for you guys, so not just like wasting your time with fluff. Love to see a video breaking down all your different playbooks. Maybe someday I will. Cool. Yeah. Glad it was entertaining and helpful for you guys. Pretty dead. Just a lot of large selling here on these tests above high a day. I mean, now the way that this is setting up, guys, we continue to make higher highs, higher lows. It seems like sellers are really trying to reject every high of day test, and it's just not going anywhere. So, I mean, I still like remain leaning towards, I would not be surprised to see this kind of really break out the highs. It's just hard to be a part of it with how this price action is forming up. But that's a pretty significant amount of selling after that high of day test, and got absorbed again down here. Like, look at the size of all the selling that came back down into here again. Again, I don't really see anything here to take it long, just kind of smaller buying, but it just, all this selling failed and just smaller buying, just grinding back up again. So it will break out of this range eventually, either today or this week. Very high chance. Bro, I really appreciate everything you've been posting and learning patience from live stream. I have come so far in the past 3 months watching you. Hopefully this channel grows to millions. Hey, I appreciate that, Ishan. I'm glad. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. Like I said, I literally get nothing out of this, guys. I'm just trading and I'm sharing what I'm doing. But I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people, so I'm continuing to do it to help people out and just share what I'm doing, since I'm doing it anyway. And I'm working on some new things for you guys in the near future that I think will be very beneficial. DM on Instagram later if that's okay. Yeah, forever, Daniel. It's cool. I have a couple questions. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Yeah, see you forever, Daniel. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate your comments and being a part of the live stream today. Have a good day. Joe says, I agree with Ishan, insane value. Appreciate that, guys. I'm glad you guys are here, and got a pretty consistent group of people on the live streams and everything, and on Instagram and everything. So that's cool. It's a pretty good group of people. Reading Jared Tendler's book. Thanks for your Instagram video. Oh yeah, Jorge, cool. Yeah, that was a good one. I posted a video of a live stream recording. If you guys missed it on Instagram, I think it was like an hour and a half with Dr. Stocks. Posts a lot of stuff about mindset, but I went over some pretty key like mindset stuff, and part of that I talked about the A to C game analysis that Jared Tendler talks about in his book, The Mental Game of Trading. So if you missed that recording is posted. It's a longer one on Instagram, so it didn't get much It didn't get much views and shares and stuff because Instagram doesn't really share longer form content so much. It doesn't really boost it, but yeah, it's the third thing that I've posted recently with Edu from the Dr. Stocks page. We did a live stream, and I think it's a good one. A lot of good information there. It's an hour long, so it's a longer video. But if you have time, I think there's a lot of good information in there. Max said he saw that and bought the book as well. Yeah, it's a great book. Great, Blair. Sounds like a lot of people actually did watch it. It's awesome. Still just sitting on my hands here. This range seems to be just getting tighter so far. So watching it and letting it develop. Watching it and letting it develop. Nice bit of buying, but still in this range. We'll see what happens. I mean, eventually we're going to break out of this one way or the other. That's a lot of selling down here at these lows now. That could be potentially trapped. Hey, Malaki, hopefully I said your name right. Any trades today? Yeah, I took one at the 89s looking for a breakout of the highs. Got swept out for break even, and then it did go break out the highs into 6,300, and it's rejected again though. It's a tight range morning, about a 20-point range on the day, but really the vast majority, other than so get rid of these quick little wicks out at those highs, the vast majority of the price action today has just traded between 95 and 85. So like 90, like if we ignore these quick little kind of wicks at the highs and lows, 90% of the day so far has just been trading in like a 10-point range. And that's in the first hour. And the range has been getting narrower, like since like 10:30 now. So for the last 20 minutes, we've been almost in just like a 5-point range, 10:36. So the last 30 minutes now, we've been in almost just a 5-point range. I'm just looking at my footprint chart. The footprint chart with the 5-point ranges really gives you a good feel for the pace of the market. And clearly when you're spending a lot of time like sideways in an area, you can see it pretty well without the noise, the up and down noise that you see on like a candle chart, and even Bookmap a bit. It really kind of filters out all the noise on the footprint chart. That's why I like to have multiple different things to view price and volume. boring morning, but hopefully there's some value. And like I said earlier, like I would say the biggest thing to watch and to take away is just to know like when is a good time to stay cash. Like maybe somebody else has a great setup in this and by all means take it. But for me and how I trade, not seeing a ton right here. So just very important to protect capital when it's time to protect capital and stay cash. And that's how trading is. Like it's not, yeah, I can post like 60-second reels on Instagram where there's a lot of action and make money quick and stuff. But then a lot of the time, like what you don't see in those little quick recaps is just the hours and hours and hours of just patience and analysis and not getting, not getting destroyed when it's not that 60-second time, to make some money fast. It's like it's like being a sniper, like hunting, you know what I mean? I can't force the market to give opportunity. I can't force an animal to come to my hunting zone if I'm out in a tree stand hunting somewhere, you know what I mean? I'm just there and ready when and if opportunity presents itself according to what I look to trade and for the system of setups that I have that I look to trade that include like the market context, price action, volume patterns that develop around that. And when you get really clear on all of that you are looking for, then it helps you stay out of things that are not that. Always learning, never bored. You're on the right track then, Mike. Could you make a video explaining your patterns and volume that you look for? You'll see a lot of snippets if you follow me on Instagram, Luis, and I post them on here too. You'll see a lot in the recaps that I watch that you can kind of reverse engineer for yourself, but maybe I'll make some more formal content around it in the near future. I will probably do some more longer format like trade recaps too, because a lot of people have asked for that. And hopefully as I do live streams more and stuff, then it's already recorded and I can take some content from that as far as recapping trades as it develops. But if you're looking for order flow stuff, Louise, and patterns, Carmine Rosado posted a good free on YouTube order flow series that I would recommend checking out as a starting point. Have I ever tried trading or even testing NQ with bookmap footprint? I find it very tough to read as the signals are not as clear as ES. Yeah, I do sometimes, especially when volatility and volume is really low on ES, but like 1% of the time. You can see on my charts here, it's right here. I would just say I zoom out a bit more and I'm not as narrowly focused on like the very, very like lower time frame as I am with ES. So I look at things a little bit more zoomed out, but a lot of the same patterns and the same things I trade do develop on NQ. And it is on my list of wants to get more involved with NQ. I do like how much faster it trades, but I just have something that works with ES and I just keep doing that. But looks like there's a lot of strong buy side volume here on NQ actually right now at the highs, which is a potential precursor for what ES might do here if NQ stays strong with this strong buying at the highs. But on the footprint charts, I use larger ranges when I do look at NQ, like 10 to 15 point probably range bars instead of 5-point range bars. And on bookmap, I zoom out a bit more like I just showed you guys. Carmine is opening Discord. What's different from Academy except I'm not sure, Ishan. You'd have to ask him. Are you using a margin account? I think all futures trading accounts are like margin accounts, but no, I'm trading with my own capital. But there is like margin. If you're not familiar with how futures contracts work and futures trading, I would search it on YouTube. There's probably a million good videos explaining it. But you're pretty much always trading with margin if you're trading futures. Like I think my brokerage requires like $750 per ES contract to open a position, or maybe it's $1,000, something like that. But obviously, the value of one ES mini contract is much, much greater than that. It moves $50 per point on ES. So you can, so it cost me $1,000, say, to open a position with one contract, but I could easily lose more than that $1,000 on that open position if I'm not managing my risk. No, I'm not trading prop firms JV. I'm trading my own personal trading account. Thoughts about it? For the vast majority of people, they just blow through money and they don't develop good trading habits. But if I always recommend just starting with a small personal account and learning that way, as small as possible with money you can afford to lose. But you think it's impossible for just the emotions and everything to be the same with prop firms. And I think it's been proven, like plenty of people have shown, like you can make a lot of money with prop firms. I'm not knocking that as a potential, but for most people, I think they're not building good trading habits the way that they trade for that. And you also have to trade within a certain set of rules and everything. And it's easy to just get in the habit of blowing accounts, resetting them, blowing accounts, resetting them, and not really build like good trading habits that are going to make you consistently profitable for a long time. Yeah, I don't trade. I used to trade options with Thinkorswim. I don't trade futures with them because their fees are just way too high. Fees are like stupid high on Thinkorswim for futures. I liked Tradeovate for a long time. I used Tradeovate starting out with futures. I liked their setup for kind of beginner friendly and pretty low fees. I have no affiliation with anyone, by the way, not them or not anyone else. I have zero affiliation dollars. I get absolutely nothing out of this. So I'm just saying that I used them for a while, for a long time. I still have an account with Tradeovate. Now I have accounts with AMP and Stage 5 and a couple brokers, and I trade through the Sierra chart platform. So kind of consolidating here again, more seeing a 200 lot positive delta built at the highs, just continue to see large buying volume at the highs. And even this rejection, so this, I stayed out of this just because of how large the selling was on this drop, but it got absorbed and we bounced. And actually we pulled back with lower volume selling here back into 89, right? Actually, that's right where I took my trade before, 89. Now we broke back above it after all this selling, and now we're back at the highs again. And this is like almost equally large buying now that we've broken back to the highs after this large selling. So, wow. zooming out here, this looks better now with this large selling. Failed. We bounced, recaptured that 89.90 area where I took that first trade off, pulled back with weaker selling. But just given the overall conditions on the day, I did not look to take that trade. But this is interesting now. This pattern here of absorption, buying, weaker pullback, that is a volume pattern that I like to see. And so this is actually kind of interesting now if we can hold it. But I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a little almost exhausted because every time I talk about this, then we just slice back down and just continue to consolidate. But like this area here, and that's that same 95-ish area. Call it just the upper portion of this where we rallied, pulled back, held in large buying here around 95. So if I see something good in there, holds again, then maybe now we can go for the high of day breakout. But it is getting late in the morning after 11 a.m. now. So sideways day. It may be what we talked about early in the pre-market this morning. If you guys remember, I talked about how there's that potential news coming out about Trump's decision to, or not Trump's decision, but announcement about a major announcement regarding Russia and the US. And I think it just came out 5 minutes ago. I see Trump's aggressive weapons plan likely to include long-range missiles that could reach targets deep inside Russian territory. I'm looking at First Squawk, by the way, for you guys on X, formerly Twitter. This is where I look at I just keep that page open usually throughout the trading day to see potential breaking news headlines. Usually even before a headline surfaces on there, and that's usually pretty fast about putting out breaking headlines and stuff like that and just kind of aggregating it in one spot. But usually, price precedes news, even something that's as quick as that. And you'll see headlines come up on there much faster than you'll see them like come up in regular, news sources. But yeah, price generally almost always precedes news. Can almost guarantee somebody somewhere knows first. And that's why, especially as a retail trader, it's very hard and almost impossible to try to trade on the news, in my opinion. But using price action and order flow and things like this, I can often usually see things before the news comes out. Financial juice is great too. Yeah, Scott said. Yeah, it is a good one as well. But what I was saying was, it is likely that a lot of participants are kind of sidelined this morning, kind of pending the potential outcome of that announcement. That's kind of almost been hyped now, like multiple times I've seen come up over the weekend and even back on Friday. I first saw it on Friday and then repeated over the weekend that Trump was going to be making a severe announcement today as far as the Russia and Ukraine situation, which seems to be just an escalation of weapons shipments to Ukraine. But depending on like what that is, that could definitely spark some volatility, especially some downside volatility. So it could be that a lot of people are kind of a little bit sidelined until that news gets factored in. And we also have a lot more bigger news events upcoming this week. And today was kind of the only day that it was really a pretty dead news day. Yeah, that area around 62, 94, 95 has been an interesting area. And that's why I just marked this box out here, kind of where we had this consolidation, dipped, and then bounced pretty aggressively here. The top of that is right around that 95. There's a really good podcast that I just watched that Words of Wisdom posted, talking with a trading psychologist. And I really recommend that. It was a really good episode talking about a lot of things that hold traders back. And one thing that I really noted, like, especially as a day trader, there it is a very high mental load to be in front of the screens and making financial decisions effectively that have a high level of mental drain. And he was saying about even just from a physiological standpoint, um, the glucose to your brain and how much of a drain that takes. And so that's just it was interesting to hear like the background on those kind of concepts. And I mean, I've noticed for a long time, like my trading performance tends to decline if I stretch it out too long without taking breaks. And I am actually an advocate for early on in your trading, not to necessarily trade all day, like trade the first hour and then, close out of trading, but still, take breaks and whatever. But there's nothing that replaces just hours and hours of screen time and experience watching the live markets, price action, and order flow and everything. So I am actually an advocate of lots of long days. I mean, I spent my first few years like 8+ hours a day in the charts. Now I try to do less than that. But as far as actively trading, like making financial decisions for yourself and trade executions, definitely that hour and a half time frame tends to be a limit. So what I like to do is at a minimum, even if you're going to trade into the afternoon, is like around now, is to take a break, go have some fruit or something that restores like your glucose levels. Your brain needs that to function properly. And go outside, touch grass, take a break away for a bit before you come back. There's a lot of evidence that continuing to push yourself for too long, I mean, it's like a professional sport or anything, like there's a time limit for a reason. And even professional sports, like you can't operate at that very high level of mental focus and everything for too long before you deteriorate. Still watching this. If it can get some momentum here above like 95 to 6,300, would like to see like more momentum and a nice little pullback with lower volume that gets absorbed here around these 95s to 92s. and or if we actually start to get strength above 6,300 now and pull back, then I'm not opposed to the break and retest. Oh, Trump is talking live. Thanks, Stelios. That's a great point. Trump threatens to impose secondary tariffs on Russia, severe tariffs on Russia, no deal in 50 days. Markets react, marks on Russia. Trump unhappy with Russia. Yeah, I didn't look over there at first squawk. Good call out. Yeah, I'm gonna chill right here. Good call out, Stelios. It may be a positive reaction if the market is kind of fearful of, physical wartime escalations with Russia, and then it's just more tariff potential stuff, then may have a positive reaction to the news. Who knows? But it's a gamble for me. Another pullback here. See, this is kind of the last kind of bit of window that I'm kind of looking for this setup here. If we can get this little bit of a pullback and we hold kind of where the strong buying is here between 93 and 97. We see a lot of resting orders here, some bids around 95 kind of stacked up here. But do have Trump speaking live, which is Trump announces U.S. to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine via NATO. Trump is disappointed with President Putin. So there you go. Patriot missiles via NATO to Ukraine. That kind of adds tension between Russia and NATO as a whole. So not ideal. See what the market's reaction is. So far, it's pretty muted here. Oh, that's so nice. Sorry, my kid's at the door. It's all right. I don't need to see the link, Stelios. Appreciate it. I mean, I'm gonna, anything that he says, I'm gonna see in the price action how the market reacts to it. But I just need to be aware that he is speaking live right now. Just because anything could happen in a flash, so need to be aware of that. Yeah, that one setup I took today was really nice. right around 10 a.m., got in those longs right at 89. If it wasn't for that one wick out and it caught me out break even, literally right after that wick, I'm just looking at the 2-minute chart, we went up and broke those highs into 6,300. That was my target. Like the high of day around 97 into 6,300. So it was about a 4 or 5 hour setup at 89s, targeting like 10, 11 points there, risking 2 points. That was a nice 5 hour setup. Got wicked out there at the 89s for break even. And it's a good thing too, because I would have taken a full stop loss. That wick went all the way down past the 87s where my original stop loss was. And then like immediately after that, we went and hit the target into the 6,300s. So unfortunate, but it is what it is. Risk was managed. It was a good setup. Target did hit, just got wicked out, took the break even. It is what it is. See if volatility picks up here in the next minute or two. Yeah, Ricky, I just recapped. So I did take one trade right around 10 a.m. I took a long off 89, targeting a break of the highs into 6,300. But you can go back and watch the recording. It was right around 10 a.m. But I had managed my risk and moved my stop loss to break even after I saw we shifted that structure with large buying. I was up like, I don't know, 3, almost 4 points. So not up a ton, but I was still technically up like almost 2R. And then I saw the buying really dwindle. So I said, it's not worth bag holding it. I moved my risk to break even. And then if you look at 10-12, there was a large wick and that stopped me out for break even. And it's a good thing because I would have taken a full stop loss on that. My stop loss was under the 87s. But then I did not get a re-entry. And after that wick, it went immediately to my target at 6,300. So it was a 5R potential trade and just got that nasty wick. That just happens sometimes. But fortunately, I was very, very good with my risk management on that. Took the break even, did not see a re-entry, and then it went straight to my target from there. And then since then, it's been pretty choppy and in the range, and I've just sat out. So Joe took one trade and one break even. It was a 5R potential. That's pretty much right there with you, Joe. All right, guys. I think I'm about to wrap it up for the day, for the session here. Coming up on 2 hours of watching this price action, and we're just really right in the same range. We are grinding higher, but I'm not seeing really any good volatility or setups to be a part of it right now. Like I said, there's only so much you can watch and be very alert and focused to price action before your brain just gets too drained to make good financial decisions. So it's coming up on that 11:30. Been on the live stream for almost 2.5 hours. We got that one break even trade that I recapped. We did drop a lot of information about just mindset and trading in general. So hopefully there was still a lot of good value and learning for you guys. But this is what it is sometimes. Friday and today, both one trade, one break, and it was break even and sitting out. So we'll see what develops. I'll post any recaps on Instagram. If I have any trades, I'll share with you guys on there and see. We'll see if anything develops. But I'm going to walk away, take a break, call it a session there this morning. Price action has just gotten slower and volume has just gotten lower and more grinding. especially in the heart of the trading session, the morning session, 9:30 all the way to 11:30 now. And we're still just grinding in this range. So I'm going to call it there. Thanks everybody for joining in. If you found value in this, I appreciate if you just drop a like on the videos. Helps me out a ton. Appreciate everyone joining in. And we'll probably do another one this week. A lot of people asked for every day this week, but I'm working on a lot of videos and stuff for you guys. So I may or may not do them every day this week. I'm going to think about it this afternoon, and I'll see any feedback and comments that I get. But we'll definitely do another stream this week for sure. I'll post on my story on Instagram. So if you aren't following me on the Instagram side, Matt Owen Trades, get the most updates as far as when I'm doing lives, posting trade recaps and everything on there. And like I said, have some stuff in the works for you guys. So hopefully there will be some good new content to come. So stay tuned. Thanks everybody for joining in. Blair, appreciate it. Jorge, Max, thanks for joining in, guys. Dogfish. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Peace.